Hi, my name is Jarek and I'm a postgrad research student at GMIT Campus Mayo. Today I want to talk to you about the SwiftPod projects that we have on our campus, the history of it, how it started, and the research that I'm conducting as well based on the data that we have available from that project. So I just want to introduce myself first. So my name is Jarek. I'm Polish and I live in Ireland since 2005. In 2018 I graduated from outdoor education program here in GMIT in Castlebar. Before that I worked as an outdoor instructor in many places around the country in many adventure centers such as Delphi, Kinsale, OEC. And I'm an adventurer. I've been to over 30 countries in my life. One of those things, I've done some cool things in my life. One of those things, probably a highlight, was go to the Everest base camp in the Himalayas. Before I get into the details of the project, I want to introduce you to the subject of my research, the common swift. Highly migratory species, they spend most of the year in their wintering grounds in Africa. However, the breeding grounds are in the northern hemisphere, including Ireland. The breeding season begins in May with their arrival in their nests and ends in September when they depart. Each season the pair of the swifts will come back to the same nest. They lay one clutch per year, and if the breeding season is successful, 1 to 3 chicks will fledge from one nest. In Ireland the common swift nests exclusively in the urban areas. They find the nest locations in man-made structures such as churches, old buildings, castles, wherever they can find and exploit the crevice between the brick or the eave of the roof. They are highly specialized to live in the air. They eat, drink, mate in the air. When they are immature or migrating, they can even sleep during the flight. Unfortunately, their numbers in Ireland and in the UK are in decline, and they are currently on the amber list of endangered species. The reason for this decline is still a source of speculations, with the decline of food sources such as the insect or loss of nest locations due to building renovations and knockdowns as the main listed reasons. The common swift is a very unique bird species. It spends most of the year flying away from the breeding grounds and builds nests in places that are hard to access. This makes the study of the species biology very challenging. The research title of my project is The Breeding Biology of the Common Swift in County Mayo, Factors Affecting Breeding Success. What's important here is the source of data, which is 18 boxes with cameras at GMIT Mayo campus, streaming and recording 24/7 during the breeding season. So every good research needs a good hypothesis. And the research project is designed to test the hypothesis that the climate and weather conditions in the west of Ireland do not limit breeding success of the common swift. So here's the main focus of our research. So what we're looking at in the summary is the ability of the adult swift to rear the chicks successfully in our area. So what we're looking at is when we are watching the videos that we recorded from the nest boxes, is how many times per day the adult swifts feed their chicks. And we also record the weather, and then we will compare the number of feeding events per chick with the weather factors to see if the weather is influencing or perhaps not the feeding frequency of the chicks. So that will be the main focus. Now there is some other opportunities as well that may come from the project. We will be very happy if we get some valuable data for those, and these are on the right side of the slide. So we will try to assess the nest boxes as the viable option for the swift nest building. We will look at the ectosing behavior. I'm gonna mention that later. We're gonna look at the collection of nest material, yearly colony growth, confrontations with the intruding swifts, and we also collect the unhatched eggs at the end of each season for the analysis for the chemical analysis, and we're looking at the at the pesticides, if there's in fact pesticides visible in the eggs. So what our main goal is during the summers is collection of the recordings from the nests. So we record nest box activity during the breeding season, that is from May to September, and we record them 24/7. The footage from 2018 and 19 is already saved and analyzed. 2020 footage will be analyzed this year. The swifts have come back already, so we will begin recording very soon, and we basically record the whole season and we'll analyze it, so we will have three full seasons of the data. So the estimated total time of all those recordings is 28,000 hours. Now this is a huge number and it's quite daunting, but it, unfortunately for me, doesn't take 28,000 hours to view those videos. I have a technique that allows me to view those videos very fast, which I'm gonna demonstrate to you in a second. So up here I'm gonna show you an example of the video that we record from just one of the nest box, box number 11. So when the recording is finished, I then download it, and then my task is to basically watch it all and record all the important events that are happening. This video is 22 hours long, however, it doesn't take me 22 hours to view the video. I use the software called VLC that allows me to skip the video by 3 seconds, 10 seconds or 1 minute. So I use hotkeys to do so. So for example, in this case, I will try to skip the video by 10 seconds so you can see. And basically that way I can monitor the changes in the nest. So at the moment 2 chicks are by themselves. So what I'm waiting now is for the adults to come back. So hopefully that will happen soon. Not much is happening, so perhaps I can skip by the minute to speed up the process. Okay, I think I saw a change. Okay, nothing is happening, unfortunately. There we go. Something happened, so I can go back 3 seconds. So, okay, so now I know that the adult swift comes back to feed the chick. Now what I do is I take the sheet just as this one, okay, and I take this time and I mark it, its exact time and what type of event happened. So if you want to play the video again, I'm going to play the video. So you can see the adult comes back with a meal for the chick. There we go, we can clearly see that one of the chicks was basically fed. So I just make a note of that, of all of those events, I put them on a sheet and then I transfer them to the Excel file. Okay, so and I do that for the whole video. I just want to mention about the equipment that we use. So what you see on the left side of the slide is the cameras that are inside of the box. And they're called green feathers, and they record in an analog format, which we then digitize. And what you see on the right side is the boxes. So the Tripper Entrance Schwegler boxes. This is one of the cameras that we used in the boxes. It's exactly the same one. This one was removed from one of the boxes because it malfunctioned, but it gives me an opportunity to show you what equipment we use. So it's not very big, but it's very basic. It records in analog format, so we have to then digitize it, as I mentioned already. You can adjust the zoom this way, okay? And those cameras actually allow you to record in the dark also. They're very basic, they cost about €40, and the company that produced them it's called Green Feathers. So we also have a recording station. So all those cameras are connected to 4 PCs. We use 2 DVRs, and we have to use 4 analog digital converters. We also have a couple of TV screens that allow us to view those videos as well. And we also use a software that allows us to record and stream at the same time. It's called Flash Media Encoder. And now I'll show you also the video that I made at the station as well. This is our recording station, where, as you can see, there's plenty of equipment. We have 4 PCs all together, and we need them to record the footage from the Nest themselves. Okay, so on this desk as you can see, is all the equipment, and then if you see all those cables are connected to the cameras in the Nest, which are actually just above there. We can't see them just now, but let's have a look at the computer anyway. So as you can see on this screen, we see the feed from one of the Nests, which is right over there, up the top somewhere. So we have the camera connected, and we use this software that allows us to basically record and also stream the videos online. Okay, this is another computer with a feed from a different box, and you can see this is on this large screen we have a feed from 8 boxes. As you can see, one of the Swifts just came back, so just to manage that data space really, and the ease of the streaming for the setup, we have 8 cameras on basically one feed as well. We can have a little close-up for the Swifts. What are they doing here? So they just came back into the Nest. There's another one right here. It's the middle of the day, so there is not a huge amount of activity. I'm just gonna wake this computer up to see. Maybe there we go. Okay, just gonna go back to this box over here. It's still really early in the season, but as you can see, there's already 1 egg in the Nest. Today is the 11th, which is actually really early. Last year we had the first egg on, I believe it was the 20th. So this year the Swifts are they came back really early, and they began their breeding season really early as well. So we would expect within a week or 2 of time, most of those boxes would have eggs in them. So now we are in the courtyard of GMIT Mayo campus. So just a second ago, you guys were in the Swift lab. Okay. Now we're on the outside. If you have a look up there, these are the Swift boxes. So we also should be able to see the cables. So those cables actually go into the Swift lab that you guys saw just a couple of seconds ago. So these 4 boxes, they were the first ones to put in, and then the 2 that are over there, they were installed last year. The weather information that's important for our analysis later is actually comes from the college itself. We have our own weather station, which we installed, and that weather station allows us to monitor things like daily rain, wind, temperature. So this is the location where we have the weather station. As you can see, this is the unit, the Davis Weather Pro station unit that you see. This is a wireless unit. It sends a signal to my desk, which is just behind a couple of walls there, and that's connected to my computer. And then it's my computer basically stores that data for later use. So if you have a look at the station again, you see that we are measuring the wind. We also there's like a copter at the top, that collects the water, and basically we're able to record how much rain is falling down. So this station is actually maybe 100 meters from the Nestbox project. That gives us like really accurate weather for where our Swifts live, basically. So now that we talked about the equipment, you guys saw the inside of the Swift Lab, the recording station. Now you saw the boxes just up here as well. So you can probably imagine that the project is quite complex. So it was probably not an easy project to start as well. And I could talk about the beginning of the project. However, I wasn't involved in it, but I know someone that was, and it's actually a person who started this project. Her name is Linda Huxley, and she's been very active in the local community here and in the local sort of environmental protection movement. So we're just gonna do a quick little interview with Linda. We're gonna talk about the beginning of the project and basically her involvement and what that project basically led to. Linda, you were an initiator of the Swiftbox project at GMIT Mayo campus, and now you are you are, among many other things, you're a founder of the environmental NGO Swift Conservation Mayo. So where did your interest into the Swifts come from, and why did you start the Swift project at GMIT?
Okay, well, it's probably quite a long story, but I'll do my best to keep it brief.
No,
I'm married to a conservationist, so my interest in the environment started about 35 years ago when I met him, and we lived in Africa for a short while. So I was very aware of the swifts because swifts migrate to southern Africa when they're outside their breeding season in Europe. So we were living in Malawi, which is one of the countries where the swifts go to. So to cut a very long story short, we moved to the west of Ireland in 20 years ago, so that'd be the year 2000, and I very quickly got a job at GMIT working in the administration, and those were very early days in environmental thoughts in Ireland. And after a few years, I found that there were a few people on campus that were interested in the environment. And so we decided amongst a group of us to explore having a green campus, doing things on campus that would be as simple as recycling and so on. So there was nothing really to work towards, but we did know that the Green Schools movement existed in the schools in Ireland, in the national schools and primary schools. So we contacted Antashka, who run the Green Schools programme, the Antashka being the equivalent of like the National Trust for Ireland. And it coincided with them wanting to explore establishing green campus at third level. So so we set up a trial to become one of the green campuses as an IT, and Cork were setting up as a green campus at the university level. So anyway, we worked very hard, and we worked on the projects that you'd imagine we would, which is waste and litter and saving energy and those things. But those are the principal themes of Green Campus. But once you've achieved those flags, you have to keep progressing every year. And one of the additional themes is biodiversity. So this will be really the theme that was very close to my heart, and I decided to become the leader of that theme. So being an admin workers work all year round in the colleges. It's not like academics that aren't there in the summer and the students aren't there. So I was in a position to notice every summer there were swifts coming to the GMIT building, and you'd hear them screaming in the courtyard. But I noticed over the years, every year the numbers were declining. So I just by chance learned that you could erect nest boxes and try and do something for swifts. And so voila, that was really the start of that initiative. We could do something for swifts, and I really wanted to give that a go.
Okay, excellent. And what year was it, if you can remember, if you can recall? When did you learn about the Swift boxes, and when did you decide to put them in college?
It was actually 2011.
2011.
2011 when I read an article that there was a group in Northern Ireland, the Northern Ireland Swift group, and so I contacted one of the main people there, Brian Cahalan, and invited him down to the campus to give us a talk on Swifts and to look at the campus and advise us where we could put the Swift boxes. At that time, I had no idea where the Swifts had their natural nests in the building. But because the campus is an old psychiatric hospital dating from the 1800s, it's the typical sort of building that Swifts choose to have their natural nests in Irish towns.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So this was one of the first boxes, Swift boxes in Ireland at the time, I can probably imagine. So long story short, the consequence of that is pretty much starting your own NGO within a couple of years, which is the Swift Conservation Mayo. And then I believe it evolved to Swift Conservation Ireland, a more national project. Tell us something about that.
Okay, so starting up the Nestbox project at GMIT, that's all I thought I was doing. I thought we'd just put a Nestbox project there, and that would be it. But news spread about this project, especially because we put a couple of Nestbox cameras in the boxes, and we got Swifts in 2014, which was 2 years after we installed the boxes. We installed the boxes in 2012. So we then started to live stream, and word spread that GMIT, was live streaming. But then people started to contact me from around the county saying, well, we know there are Swifts in this building and it's going to be renovated and the Swifts will be lost and so on. But then I discovered there was no survey identifying which buildings in towns were being used by Swifts. So therefore, the nest sites could be destroyed and nobody would be any the wiser because people didn't know that there were Swifts in buildings. So therefore, that led to me and a group of volunteers surveying every town in Mayo to establish where all the natural nest sites were. So that was kind of the start of it, really. Okay,
excellent. I want to come back to the Swift project that we have in GMIT. What our listeners will probably be very interested with, how do you start projects such as this one? I know that the GMIT is a public institution as well. What was it like getting approval from them? What was it like getting funding? And basically just support from the staff? And what were the difficulties? That's pretty much it.
Yeah, for the Nestbox project is this. So initially the Green Campus was really a Mayo thing.
Right.
The Galway campus and the Letterpratt campus, they weren't really engaging in it. So we were doing this as as a Mayo campus thing. But there wasn't really any funding available for that sort of thing. So we applied for something that was called a Local Agenda 21 grant from Mayo County Council. And that provided us with the money to buy the initial 4 triple boxes, which gave us 12 Swift Nest boxes. And then the cameras were actually sponsored by staff. So initially we had 2 cameras, but once they got Swifts in, the rest of the staff wanted to be part of it, and they sponsored the rest of the cameras. But then, of course, the project evolved and the live streaming, so the technicians got involved, they gave their time freely, and we managed to get a link with the Higher Education Network so that we could put the live stream over the GMIT website. So it evolved really, just naturally and ergonomically. There was no plan really, but it just captured people's imagination.
Yeah, perfect. What were the difficulties, if you can recall any major difficulties with starting projects such as this one?
Well, we had to get permission. Well, getting the money was the first challenge,
Right.
and of course then we had to get Buildings and Estates permission to install the boxes, because this is a listed building, and also we were working at over 5 meters high, so we had to get the contractors that work on the college, they had to install the boxes. There was quite a lot of red tape to go through, but we just managed to do it with goodwill, and that's really how the project has progressed, is with the goodwill of people, and people being very, very interested in it. Being, as you mentioned earlier, it's the first real Swift Nestbox project in the Republic of Ireland that's on a public building. When we set up that project, there was one other Nestbox project in the Republic, and that was in Tubbercurry town. So we became really a very, very important project, and we still are internationally, because we now have, as you know, we now have a live stream with, and we have cameras in 12, well, it's now 18 nest boxes, isn't it? So we've cameras in 18 nest boxes, and that's quite significant.
Okay, excellent, thank you for that. Next question, I just want you to recall like the first success of the project, of those Swift boxes, that the first thing that when it happened, you went, this was all worth it. I love what I've done, I'm very proud of it. Just that one moment, if you can recall it.
I can recall it very easily. It was the first year we put the nest boxes up, 2012, and when the Swifts arrived back, we had Swifts looking at the nest boxes, because we were playing the attraction calls, which you have to do to help them find the boxes. But then the next big moment came in 2013. We had connected our 2 cameras to an old television in the lab near the boxes, and we saw a Swift in the nest boxes, and I was jumping up and down for joy, because that to me was like, it was all worth it. It was going to work. Yeah.
Excellent, and it's amazing to think, going back from that moment, that this year we will expect 12 boxes of occupancy perhaps, and maybe even 8 breeding pairs. So it's amazing how quickly the project grew. And last question I want to ask you, when did the idea to start the research sort of started to evolve? I understand that the recording of the Swifts started in 2015, but when did you realize that there is a real possibility to contribute to sort of science and the knowledge of biology of the Swifts?
It really, the kernel of thought came to me in 2014, because there were, every 2 years there's an international Swift conference, and that the conference in 2014 was in Cambridge in England, and Brian Callahan in Northern Ireland said you should go along to that conference and tell people about your project. So I didn't really realise that it would be of any importance, but then when I got to Cambridge and I heard all the other talks, I realised how little opportunity there is to study Swifts, and that we really had quite a special thing going there, that there were quite a lot of questions that people were asking themselves about Swifts, and we had the opportunity maybe to start putting something in place to answer those questions.
Okay, amazing, thank you very much. So that's basically all the questions I have for you for now, Linda. Just before we finish, maybe just advise people how can they find you if they're interested in your projects and the stuff that you're doing, and with the Swifts. Where can they find you? Online, perhaps?
Yeah, online. Yeah, there's a Swift Conservation Ireland Facebook page, and then there's a website, swiftconservation.ie. And so my contact details are on the website, and they can actually, there is a link to the GMIT webcams on that website, and there's examples of all sorts of projects and advice as well.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Linda, for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Gary.
Thank you, Linda, for this interview. Now, however, I want to move on to another subject. So, as already explained, how I collect the data and all the equipment, now I want to talk to you about some of the struggles that are ahead of me. With all the data, with all the recordings from the Swift videos, I also have I also have the weather data as well. So now at the end of the research, I will have all of the numbers together. I will have to compare them with the weather data to basically come out to the conclusion of the whole research. And it's not as easy as it sounds. So with the next couple of slides, I'm just going to try to explain to you just the challenge that I'm facing. Now there is couple of technological limitations with the way we're gonna do this recording. So apologies if there is a kind of a loss of quality with the voice and perhaps the recording. But bear with me, we'll try to get through it. First of all, I would like to apologize for perhaps a low quality of audio in this part of the presentation. But the important data that I'm able to see from, from those videos is the arrival date, clutch size, incubation duration, feeding frequency, and fledging date. So that information from those sheets, when I watch the videos, all the information I record on the sheets, then I have to transfer them to the Excel file. So this is what the Excel file looks like when it's finished. So each day I mark with the yellow panel, which is up here. So each video is dated, and each video starts with 0, and then I record the timestamp for each event that's taking place on a particular date. So we have functions that let us calculate the time of the event when it happened during the day. So, for example, this event, which is when the second adult came back into the nest, it came back in for the night, happened 8 hours 42 minutes into the video, and that there's a function that let us calculate that this event happened at 2 minutes past 10. We also have a function that lets us calculate how long that event took place. So once the last adult Swift came back into the nest, he spent 9 hours in the nest before left in the morning for its morning feeding. Here we record the feeding events as well, and a couple of other things as well that might prove important later on in the research. Well, those are the main things. Now I'm going to move on to the second slide. On this slide, I just want to give you an example of what's going to happen at the very end. Once I collect all the information, we let all those functions calculate the number of feeding events per day, and we add on the weather recordings as well, weather data. So this is just an example of the table from 2015. I picked this week because it's actually pretty interesting to find out, and this will illustrate some of the challenges that are ahead of me. So this is a collection for the week, so let's have a look at this part. So in this part we basically calculated how many times the feeding events happened on that particular day. It goes from 17, drops to 14, then goes down to 9, then climbs back up again to 15, 14, 22 and 13. So as you can see, the numbers here are quite varied. Now my task is to figure out why, have an answer to why. So that variety of numbers is probably caused by the weather factors, but let's look closer at them. For this exercise, we're only going to look at the rain. Now in this part, we have rain data for that day. And if you can see up here, 19.2 on the second day, it's quite a substantial number. This is basically a storm. weather. So that's the day when it could be localized flooding. So quite a lot of rain and the difficult weather conditions. So you might think that the weather conditions like this will severely affect the ability of swifts to collect food for the chicks. However, they collected the food 14 times that day. Now the number dropped to 9 the next day, but if you can see, the rain kind of settled. It was still probably having enough, but it was definitely less than the day before. Now the rain is heavier again on the day before, but the feeding frequency is rising. Interestingly, it climbs back up all the way to 22, but the rain is quite moderate. On the last day, the rain is heavy again, and the feeding frequency drops. So at the moment, is there a pattern? It's very hard to say. So I saw this, all of this data from last week, and I thought there must be some more information here that I can dig out. I can't really tell anything from here, from this part. Now this is just another graph that helps me to illustrate the data. So the red is basically the amount of rain that happened that day. Blue is the feeding events. So as you can see, it is quite varied and it's very hard to see the pattern here. So I decided to dig deep, and I'm gonna concentrate on the second day when the rain was quite substantial. So while this is a daily data, I've decided to look at the hourly weather data. So in this part, I have the weather data for that day, for the same day, by the hour. Interestingly, most of that rain, that heavy rain, happened in the middle of the night, between 2 o'clock up until 8 a.m. Now during that time, adult swifts very rarely collect food. And they would stay in the nest. So just from that, I can see that while it appears that there was quite a substantial amount of rain on that day, it didn't affect the swift's feeding ability at all that day. The rain then kind of settled, and there was still plenty enough time for the adult swift to collect enough meals for the chicks. If we go back to that sheet from that day, we can tell that the last time when the activity was recorded in the nest was at 10:31 the previous day, on the 25th, and then the adult swift left the nest at 10:30 in the morning next day, which is 12 hours of 12 hours of the adult swift staying in the nest, which is a very long interval, because usually swifts, adult swift will leave the nest at around 5 o'clock in the morning for their morning feed. So this is just one of the examples, just an illustration for you guys with the amount of data that I have and all those little examples. So that's just basically the task that's ahead of me. We're almost at the end of the presentation. However, just before we finish, I want to talk to you about another aspect of the research that is actually really interesting. The known behavior of egg tossing by the swifts. So far, there's no research into the subject, no meaningful research into the subject, and there's a lot of speculation about the subject among the ornithologists. It is known that the swifts lose the eggs during the breeding season. However, so far no one gave an answer of why does that happen. Now with this research, with the amount of recording that we do, we see all of those events. So we are able to come out, we probably will be able to come out with the answer to this question of why do swifts lose so many eggs during the breeding season. We are at the end of the presentation, so I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank Piers McDonald for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank Linda for the interview. I want to take a moment to thank Marina for editing of this video. And at the very end, we want to include a video of us releasing a Swift last year. This Swift was brought to Linda, and she took care of it for about 2 weeks, I believe. And then we released it close to our colony at the grounds of GMIT. So thank you very much, and please enjoy.